Welcome to Racers Odds. I'm David Styles. That is Andrew Kurland, and we have a special guest today. Kevin Redfern is joining the program, and we're going to talk about a little bit of a recap of the Clash and then get into some future bets. So I'll start with Kevin because he had some bets placed for Bowman Gray. Kevin, how'd you do this past week?
It depends on how you look at it, man. I mean, like, if you're walking out of the Clash saying that you had money on Ryan Parise at 60-1 or 70-1 pre-race, I don't doubt you. I mean, like, the short track success was there last year, but no, there was definitely some money to be made during the Clash Wednesday night live betting. If you had your finger on the button, I just so happened to be lucky to be doing that. But yeah, there was a lot. There was Carson Hocevar, who had some price drops throughout the race. We had Ryan Preece. Obviously, you could have made some money on Shane Van Gisbergen. I mean, that guy continues to find himself at the front of the field at some unexpected times. But yep, early season live betting opportunities were galore to start the race season yesterday.
Now, Andrew Kurland was boots on the ground. Did you freeze to death, or how did it go for you, Andrew?
It was cold. Yeah, I had the luxury of hanging out in the media center, so I feel for the fans. But I spent a lot of the second half of the race in the freezing rain in the stands, and I was just enjoying it, watching it. No one was sitting down, either because the seats were frozen or because the action was good. I think it was maybe a mix of both, but it was entertaining up until when the cautions kept piling on and we would go one lap and then 5 under yellow and so on. But I had fun at the Clash. It's good to be back. It was like the first day of school. But Kev, I do want to ask you, because you and I were texting a lot during the Clash. You were keeping me informed as to where your bets were. And this live betting thing, it happened so fast.
Yep.
And it's hard to articulate to people in the moment, but take me through like what your strategy is, what you're looking for, what you go into a race weekend with, and how that evolves as the race goes on.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, guys, thank you for having me on the show. I should have gotten that out of the way earlier. It's a pleasure. I like to bet NASCAR. I do it for fun, but if we can help make other people money, let's do it. So I think when it comes to live betting, a lot of it ties into what we're going to talk about today with futures, and it's viewing race winners or championship winners as investments instead of straight predictions. A lot of the money that a lot of sharp NASCAR bettors make is through live bets and through futures where they're expecting price drops. You know, those long shots who over the span of time, their price drops. Sportsbooks then often will give you a cash out. Up for debate whether how fair that cash out is. But if we're talking about making profits, this is the way to do it. So I always like to be paying attention, having the finger on the button. Some of these sports books, we don't need to name specific names or anything, but compared to how they price NFL and NBA and MLB in the moment, it's just a little bit slower that you can see things, and there's such a wide range of outcomes, right? When you've got 40 drivers, I know the Clash, there's only 23 or so, but it's just hard for those algorithms and those computers or for those people to really be updating those prices accurately at the right time. So to give you an example, last night, I can't remember if it was at the halfway point or maybe one of the early second half cautions, Ryan Preece was somewhere in the top 10, I want to say 7th, 8th, or 9th, and was at 70-1 odds live for probably a good 15 or 20 minutes. So if it definitely takes some knowledge and knowing what type of tracks guys are strong at, but Ryan Preece, 70-1 payout, that's a guy who's been moving forward consistently throughout the race, and those, I don't know that implied odds off the top of my head. I could pull up the calculator, but it's minuscule. It's almost undoubted that guy's price is going to drop eventually. And when that happens, you get a positive cash out. And then you can just keep playing that game, keep rolling money, pocket your profits. And it's a pretty successful strategy to make some money without, sweating out a whole race and hoping that your guy doesn't wreck or that untimely caution comes out. That's just one example, but that can be done pretty much every week.
Yeah, that implied probability is almost 1.5% if you're going to take
Wow.
Ryan Preece.
For a good racer.
Yeah, for a good racer.
Yeah.
And up until this point, you know, we talked about it last week on the show. We thought that Preece was a good dark horse because he is successful at this track. But we both said, I don't know if I would end up taking him at the odds that he was currently at
Right.
when we released the episode, which was around plus 9,000. And so for me, that was just a little bit too rich for my blood. But up until this point, he hadn't won anything. He's now a race winner in NASCAR, and this changes the complexion on how you bet him from here on out. And it also speaks to the fact that he was arguably the best driver last year for RFK. So his stock is only going to go up as we see these futures for him kind of trickle in, and I expect to see him in more matchups too on different sports books as we move forward.
When we look at futures, let's talk about some of them. We've got overall championship winner, and then you can get to the specific drivers in terms of over-unders for race wins. Who do you guys have your eyes on in terms of people to watch for these future types of bets?
For me, it's a little different because I'm looking at the bottom of the barrel. I've got two guys circled, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski. They're both at kind of comparable bets, and they're both going to have to win at least one race because their over-under is at 0.5. For me, I feel much more comfortable betting on Keselowski to win a race versus Kyle Busch to win a race. So if I was going to lay money on either of those, I would probably lay money on Keselowski to win, Busch to not win, and you would just have to wait and see how it pans out. Keselowski had an abysmal start to the year last year, but he ended up with a bunch of top 10s and top 5s and some second-place finishes as the year went on. And the last time that he was injured, oh yeah, he won a race just 3 days later in Pocono. Yes, that was back in 2011, but it could happen again.
Fair. I like that. He's good on the plate tracks. Kev, what do you think?
Yeah, just to stay on the win totals discussion, I mean, there's just one bet that as I was researching, there's a lot of good value, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it, but one of them jumps off the page, and part of this as a somewhat emotional better got me was on DraftKings, Carson Hocevar to get one win. So over under 0.5 wins is plus money, plus 130 on DraftKings right now. That's one that I'm running to. I mean, the way that this dude finds track position in stages 1 and 2 of a race when you just don't think that he's going to have that speed, it is really impressive. I think he could have won at Bristol last year easily.
I agree.
We saw how he did at the Clash last night. He wasn't able to control the race, but I mean, I almost don't blame you in those conditions. I don't think really anyone was until Ryan Preece when things dried up a little bit. And he's got speed at different tracks too, short tracks, intermediate tracks. I think his best winning threat is at Atlanta, which is where we're going to get 2 of those races. We've seen how he's been able to maneuver around there. That's one that if you tune in every week and you've got a future on Carson Hocevar, just win one race, you're going to have a lot of fun watching it too.
I was waiting for someone to say Carson Hocevar, and I'm glad you did because that was like the guy I had circled on my list in terms of last year it was inconsistent speed, and a lot of it came with luck. Like there would be weekends where they would be off, but then when they are on, they are race-winning contenders. And I don't think you can say that necessarily about the rest of Spire Motorsports. He just signed a long-term contract. I feel like, only going to get better. Carson Hocevar winning a race this year seems like a very probable thing. I also wrote down Christopher Bell. I think the line is 3.5 wins. He won 4 times last year, but the amount of close seconds, he finished 9 times 2nd through 5th last year. I think Bell, with the chase format and being able to really hone in on putting together a season, is going to do well for him. And then another one that I'd be curious about for you guys is Joey Logano. Will he have a win or not? And I don't know. I think the line is at 1.5 wins. And that's a tough one.
To me, I don't like betting on Joey in that sense. If I'm going to throw money at something, I'd much rather bet on his future to win the championship. And there's a reason for that. A lot of people may say you're just throwing your money away because it's like plus 1,800 or some huge odd. And for me, he's very consistent towards the end of the year. And that's going to pay dividends in this format. He's been good at any format they throw at him, and he's a 3-time champion. So for
all
me,
in the one format, though.
it doesn't matter. That's the rules that we've been given, and he's going to race according to the rules that are in state now. And I do believe that there is such a thing as a Penske push after the Indianapolis 500 is over, where all 3 of those teams, they start to ramp things up toward the end of the year. And he's very, very good on all the tracks that are in the chase, and they've capitalized on that year after year in the old playoff system where they just had to win a couple races. If you tell him, hey, you've got to go out and now win just a few races and be consistent in between them, I think he can do that. And he's very, very aggressive. So any place that we go that he gets an opportunity to look at the front and get a win, I think he'll take it. And so for me, I don't think that the value is in how many wins he's going to have. I would rather bet him to win the championship than bet on, 2+ wins.
I think you are throwing your money away. But what do you think, Kevin? Before I give my opinion.
I like the thought process, especially when you count. I view these things as investments. Do I think Joey Logano is going to win the NASCAR Cup Series championship this year? No, but I mean, what if he's somewhere in the 1,800 to plus 2,000 range, depending on where you look? Like, you could easily see that getting down to 8 to 1, 7 to 1 if we see late season Joey Logano and late season Ford. I also think Ford is going to get off to a little bit stronger start this year compared to the last 2 years, and as they continue to collect more data on, I believe they had a new body a couple of years ago or tweaked something in the body, and we just seen ever since then they've been a little bit slower to start the season. But yeah, Joey Logano is a safe investment. That's like Joey Logano is bundled into the S&P 500 of NASCAR futures betting. Like that one's, it's going to be low volatility. That's a smart bet. I'm not going to fight you on that one.
I think you're convincing me here because if you look at outright Joey Logano winning the championship, the easy answer is absolutely not. At least for me, it is. But the way you look at it is you're never going to get to the finish line. You're never going to get to Homestead with Logano. All you're doing is putting a bet on him, hoping those odds get better so that when the odds are favorable to cash out, you cash out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, as I think about it more, you're betting that they're going to make the chase.
Right.
Because then eventually that field gets narrowed down. The numbers get tighter. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's only got to beat 15 other drivers.
Exactly.
It goes from 1 out of 36 to now 1 out of 15 at plus 1,800. I'm willing to put a little bit of money on that. And then, like Kevin said, if they change the odds and they offer you the cash out because the odds are more favorable, then you take the cash out.
All right, you convinced me. All right, so let me ask you this now. If we're talking about investments, looking at the top guys favored for the championship, it's Hamlin plus 375, Larson plus 425, Byron 575, Bell 625, Blaney 625, Elliott plus 1,000, Briscoe plus 1,000. Do you stay away from the favorites for futures? Because they're, those odds are at Hamlin at plus 375. Like you're not getting a whole lot of bang for your buck. And if you're talking about investments and getting them to the chase, stay away from somebody who actually has good odds.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin's future right now for the championship is the Grinch bet. You didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And when it comes to those favorites, like I kind of group that group that you mentioned, Andrew, going down to Chase Briscoe and Chase Elliott as at 10 to 1. Like I love the value in that section, and I think that a lot of people who are analyzing futures bets are going to as well. Anything below 10 to 1 on a future, just think about the range of prices where that could go if you're talking about this strategy. Like it just can't get that much more sharp. Like it can't, if you're betting Brian Blaney at plus 650, like throughout the season, he's never going to go lower than whatever Denny Hamlin's priced at right now. And it's a strong bet. Like Ryan Blaney's, that dude's got as good of a chance to fight in this format as anyone else, because I don't think that 7 or 8 DNF total is going to hold up year to year. I don't think anyone agrees with that. But it's just, if you're treating it like an investment, there's just not enough movement there. And that's why I think you start with Chase Briscoe and Chase Elliott. It kind of stinks that we're not talking about this a week earlier, because I think Chase Briscoe has dropped pretty universally to 10-1 across the board, where last week, 2 weeks ago, you could find some 12-1, 14-1s. But Briscoe and Elliott are where you're living right now. When you think of points racing, I think you think of Chase Elliott. It's a guy who's finished in the top 4 in the regular season point standings each of the last 2 years. Kind of unanimously the best points racer across the sport. And then Briscoe, no one was better than Chase Briscoe from a consistency standpoint after the Coke 600 last year. He obviously is a dominant force in qualifying. And just to put a bow on this, 15 races last year were won from the front row, and that was the most in over 40 years. So if you're talking racing for stage points, if you're talking being up front on these hard to pass tracks, like Chase Briscoe is your guy, assuming that trends continue from last season.
That's true, and we're running a little short on time here, so we're going to go ahead and get into where me and Andrew stand as far as our bets go. Me, I won 1 of 3 bets from the Clash. If we bring those up, I had an odd car number to win, which I thought that was going to happen. Kyle Larson was leading most of the race. I was like, man, this looks really good. Also had a Chevy to win. I was like, gosh, this looks really good.
was up there.
And
SVG was up there.
Yeah, I was like, this is great. Like, this is going to happen. It didn't happen. And so the only bet that I ended up winning was Chris Buescher over Ty Gibbs, which turned out to be a pretty good bet. And so I was in the green there. But overall, I am down. And so I stand currently at $4,941.67. Again, this is Monopoly money. It's not real. We're just betting it for the fun of it. Andrew, on the other hand, he did a little bit better than me. He also only won 1 bet. He cashed in on Blaney with a top 3 at plus 165, and that takes his total to $4,998. So he is only down $2, which is pretty solid. So we're going to go ahead and give you some future bets for this week and maybe give you some insight onto where you should place some money. And we'll start with our guest first. Kevin, where would you place a few dollars or units this week if you were going to have to place a futures bet?
Okay, we'll go outside of what we talked about earlier because just to be transparent, like if I'm recommending anything that we've talked about previously, I'm on Hocevar, I'm on Briscoe, and I'm on Chase Elliott. Outside of those things, there's 2 that I'm staring at right now that I am just extremely emotional about and think that these are locks in the gambler term. Austin Cindric on DraftKings over 0.5 wins. So Austin Cindric to win 1 race at minus 110. So you basically pay the minimal juice on DraftKings. Arguably, if you talk to drivers in the garage, the best super speedway racer in NASCAR. Probably has 2 super speedway wins last year if he doesn't get turned on the backstretch in the 500. Continuously finds his way up front. We know how good the Penske's are together at the front of super speedways, and you've got 6 races on him this year. So I love that bet. I don't think you're paying a lot of juice at minus 110. That's about as even. And then I'll go one more just really quickly. Investment Tyler Reddick on BetMGM right now to win the Drivers' Championship. This is a guy who won the regular season title 2 years ago, top 7 or 8 in regular season points last year. It was just a really rough year for 23XI last year, obviously from their lawsuit perspective, but then also for Tyler Reddick personally. So I'm expecting a big bounce back and honestly a massive, massive price change on that throughout the year and a real threat to win the title.
Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin has got me convinced on the Chase show. I really like the futures in Chase Elliott, Chase Briscoe. I think you put money on them just to make the chase, and then you cash out. So give me Chase and Chase to make the chase, and then you cash out. So that's what I'm liking. And then in terms of over-unders, I like the Hocevar wins a race. I feel very strongly about that. I think you can even look at, does Kyle Busch win a race? Briscoe, he's got over under 2.5 wins. I think he has a better year than last year. You can take the over for him. So I'm leaning heavy on the chases. I'll go Chase Briscoe, Drivers' Championship. Chase Briscoe over 2.5 wins. Chase Elliott, Drivers' Championship. Carson Hocevar over 0.05 wins for me.
I like it. That's a solid round out. For me, I'm a little bit of the Debbie Downer. I'm going to bet Keselowski to at least win one race this year. I'm not going to put a lot of units on it, but at minus 110, that's a probability of around 52%. I can stomach betting money on that. And he's been pretty good when he comes off of injury, and I think he's going to be in the car at Daytona, and it's eluded him thus far in his career. It's really the only thing he needs to round out what is a Hall of Fame type career. So I think Keselowski gets at least one win. I don't know if it comes at Daytona or not, but I think it happens. On the flip side of that, it has been 978 days on the day that we are recording this since Kyle Busch has won a race. It will not happen again. He is done. Put a fork in him. He will not win a race in 2026. He can just not overcome the equipment issues that they have at RCR. So I think that favorite bet at minus 175, yeah, you're not going to make a whole lot, but I can't say you should bet for him to win. If he does get a win, it will be at a super speedway or some fluke instance, and it will not be because he just outdrove someone. He had chances last year. It just didn't happen. So I'm fine with putting a few units on him on the under, and you can thank my mentor, Doug Rice, because he likes to put people in the grave way too soon, and I'm going to do it to Kyle Busch here on today's show. The other bet that I really like is Joey Logano to win the championship. We've already kind of stated why. I'm okay with putting a few units on that. It's plus 1,800. I think it's a good bet. You can always cash it out once those change later. So that's about all I have for my bets for the future. And Kevin, I'm really glad that you're on the show today. Maybe we'll have you back sometime soon.
Absolutely. I would love to. Yeah, I love talking NASCAR. Love talking I love having something to root for on a week-to-week basis, right? This is how you can generate fandom in the sport. Throw a couple bucks from your wallet on Tyler Reddick or Joey Logano, and then live with their highs and suffer from their lows throughout the season. That's what it's all about.
It's all
Kevin's
about
the guy. I ask him, like, who's your favorite driver? You know, you've been watching NASCAR for a number of years. It's whoever's making me money this week. I'm like, all right, this is the type of guy to listen to when it comes to sports gambling. I was riding and dying with you last night at the Clash, Kev. I mean, you were telling me these bets. You were telling me who you cashed out on, who you jumped in on. I found myself rooting for those drivers, even though I had no stake in the game. So we're going to continue to ride and die with you now that we know what you have on the show.
Well, I can help pay your data bill thanks to Ryan Priest for blowing up your phone.
Yeah.
So.
There you go. It's all about cashing tickets and helping you grow that bankroll. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe there on YouTube or wherever you're listening to our podcast or shows. And for Andrew Kurland and Kevin Redfern, I'm David Styles. This is Racers Odds.